I tried to put my arm on my colleague's shoulder multiple times. Several years ago, I'm male, then in late 20s, was friends with a female colleague and I was walking her home. I like her, but apparently she didn't like me romantically. I tried to put my arm on her shoulder and she swirled out of it. I tried to do it a few times and got the same reaction. So I eventually stopped doing that and took her home. After taking her home, on my way back I realized that I was trying to touch her without her consent. I apologized to her via text message and she said it was okay. After that we remained friends and did friendly activities, such as playing sports together and exchanging gifts. We are still friends, I think. But the fact that I tried to touch her without her consent still haunts me after many years. I apologized to her again last year and she still said it was okay. But I can't forgive myself, even if she forgave me. I feel like the worst person ever. I don't know this is whether because of my OCD obsessive-compulsive disorder or because I really did something that bad and should feel eternally bad about it. I can't rate my past objectively. What if other people find out that I did this? Will my friends stop being my friends? Will I lose my job? Am I still qualified to find a romantic partner in my life? If so, should I confess to my future partner about what I did? Would it be dishonest to hide this past from her? Please rate the badness of what I did in your opinion. Wasted a larger amount of money because of mental health, so I attribute making this mistake to the worsening and more long-term effects of my anxiety. I had to make a decision on a school and chose the much more expensive and slightly more reputable one at first based on prestige, cause I thought that's how you get ahead in life. My dad, who I have a conflicting relationship with, would pay for it, put down a $2,500 deposit to secure the place. But I just couldn't deal with having him pay to $0K for a media and film studies master's, even from a very good school, cause they're just so manipulative with money. So at the last minute, I chose the super slightly less well-ranked one so I could do a work-study program. We're not getting that to $5K back. I know it's a super privilege problem, but it's not really about the schools. I'm worried my anxiety is going to become so overwhelming at more and more important and pivotal points in my life, and I won't always be able to afford or change my own decisions. I just freeze and can't think for myself. I'm so terrified I'm not part of this reality enough to understand it, and therefore have good judgment. I intentionally tossed all our neighbors' keys into the trash. When I was a kid, around 10, my younger brother 8 and I were hanging out in our neighborhood. Our neighbor, who is a supplier of some commercial products, has his storage depot nearby. We spotted our neighbor's car in front of the depot, but we couldn't see him around. The depot store was closed, but the keys were still hanging in the lock outside. We guessed he was inside and had forgotten to remove the keys. We decided to have some fun, so we removed the keys from the lock and ran away. There were a lot of keys, maybe 20 or more. I assumed they were the keys to everything our neighbor owned, his house, cars, depot, business place, and so on. My brother and I kept running, not knowing what to do with the keys. Finally, we decided to get rid of them, so we tossed them in a trash can on some street. This is the first time I've confessed about this. Nobody knows except my brother, who has probably forgotten about it. I came across a Reddit story today that reminded me of my wrongdoing. I'm 36 now, and I still feel ashamed of what I did almost 30 years ago. I feel terrible whenever I think about what our neighbor must have gone through to get new keys for everything he owned. To this day, whenever I visit my family and see our neighbor or one of his family members, I feel awful, as if I'm a fraud and a liar. Sometimes I want to go to my neighbor and confess, but I'm afraid of his reaction. I saw a friend while drunk and I don't remember anything. I'm 19F. Recently, I went to a party. At this party, I drank more than I thought I did and ended up blacking out for a couple hours. I remember at some point in the night, I was with a friend and I'm separated from the rest of the group. I am not sure why because I don't remember. What I remember is sitting with him and leaning on him because I couldn't stand or sit on my own. I eventually just fell over into his lap. He was also extremely drunk and could not stand or really do anything either. From then on, I have a gap in my memory. The next day, I apologized for being weird BC. I assumed I probably was annoying and drunk, touchy, leaning on him for support and so on, or even made a move because, to be honest, there are many instances of me kissing friends when I'm drunk, even if I am not romantically interested in them. To be even more transparent, there was one other incident where I felt up another guy behind me. assuming it was the friend I was with because I did not realize my friend had left me. I am ashamed of all of these incidents and have apologized and attempted to take accountability for the last one. However, when my friend did not respond for a couple days, I felt SMTH was off. This morning, I received a long text of him confronting me ABT sighing and violating him. He is OFC deeply hurt and upset about this. I apologized the best I could for a situation like this that cannot be remedied with a simple apology. A big problem is I don't remember what I did, and I don't want to push anyone to tell me in wanting to talk to people involved soon. I feel wrong for even feeling upset at this situation, but I feel extreme guilt. I never thought I could hurt someone in this way, let alone a friend. Even though I did not intend for this to happen, I still violated someone. Regardless if I was drunk, I'm going to stop drinking, but I wish I just was not like this at all. TBH, what happened, and there is nothing I can do to reverse it. I'm not looking for advice, BC. I was not the one who was wronged. I just needed to talk ABT, BCIDK, how to live with myself. Update. I found out through a friend of his what happened. He helped me find a place to piss, and after sitting down, I got on top of him and kissed him with his consent. I want to clarify that I know what I did was wrong regardless of if I was drunk. I am not using alcohol as an excuse. Many people are too focused on the alcohol aspect and are even claiming him an alcoholic. I am not. I just sometimes take it too far and black out. However, even though I am not using alcohol as a crutch, I am no longer drinking because it would be wrong for me to even risk putting someone else in that situation. Also, in the past when I have kissed friends, it has been consensual. Most of the time there is even verbal consent, asked from me or the other person. I saw a friend while drunk and I don't remember anything. I sabotage my only friend's attempt to make other friends, so that they don't leave me. I'm 18, as is this friend, who for simplicity's sake I will refer to as Nick, and we've known each other since 2021. I've always been terrible at making friends, and I truly mean it when I say that he is the only actual friend I have other than basic superficial friends, who I don't interact with outside of school. I'm more or less his only friend too, and we've been reliant upon each other for 3 years. A month or so ago, someone from another friend group at school asked Nick if he wanted to hang out with them. I immediately became terrified of the idea that Nick could potentially leave me and join this other group of people who, by the way, despise me, so I immediately started to convince him that it was a bad idea, eventually leading to me making flat-out false screenshots of them, speaking about Nick negatively to prove that it wasn't worth it. He eventually agreed with me and decided to not go through with the plans. Now I know for a fact that he'd be better off with them than me. Plain and simple, they're objectively better company than hanging around with me, and I know he'd be much happier, but my fear of abandonment is so strong and I so cannot imagine a life where I don't have a singular friend that I can't bring myself to let go of him. And now the guilt is eating me up alive. It's all I can think about. Every time I see him, all I can think of is how I'm denying him a better social life out of my own selfishness. I think he's noticed something's up with me. He asked me recently why I looked so miserable all of a sudden, but I can't bear to tell him what I did. I know for a fact he, like me, wants to branch out and have other friends. I should have let him give it a try, but I didn't, and now I feel so terrible about it. He deserves far better, and I really don't know what to do. We're both definitely not in the best place mentally either, and I know for a fact he deserves friends who actually have their lives sorted out, unlike myself. But again, my brain cannot convince itself to actually do what's right and tell him the truth, that I ruined his chance of making new friends for my own selfish gain. I don't know what to do. I am an awful person who uses and manipulates people around me. I 19 am an awful person. I grew up in a very unhealthy household. My parents were addicts and my parents were neglectful and abusive. My older siblings were the only people around me who cared for me, and I have consistently lied and manipulated them. After my parents split up when I was 10, my parents remarried. My mother married a decent enough man. He was an angry person and he took it out on me, but he wasn't totally awful. I exaggerated about the way he treated me to my mother and she left him. When my mom left him, I 17 moved in with my brother. He treated me well, but we argued about opinions. I paid him about $500 a month in rent, but it didn't work out because of our arguments. I then moved in with my oldest sibling. They were the sibling that raised me. I once again paid $500 a month. The plan was to save up and get my own place. I was saving, but I kept on impulsively spending money. I stayed with them for 2 years. I was welcome there, but I never managed to make a considerable savings. Every time they asked me about my savings, I lied. I didn't want to, but I couldn't bring myself to tell the truth. Once I started lying about that, I found myself lying to other people about anything. I do it because I feel like making things up about myself is the only way to make people like me. I feel like a deep void where a person should be. I have moved, but I'm still staying with a family member across the country. I don't know what to do. I constantly feel depressed and suicidal. I moved to try and start new. I have been trying to save again to some success, and I've been trying to stop lying, but my old lies come back to bite me, and I have to lie again to keep images up. The worst part is that I know something is severely wrong with me. I've known that from a young age. I've only ever felt sadness and anger, but I can't seem to help myself. Edit. Thank you all for the responses. I'm going to take your advice and look for therapy. I've never done it before, so this feels like a big step. I may or may not have bullied someone with heavy intellectual diagnoses as a kid. I've been living with the thought that I scarred someone for years, and I just want to hear if others think it is as serious as I find it to be. It starts at an old school, maybe 8 years old or something like that. I get in a class which, hint hint, ended up being probably the most mentally traumatic part of my life I've ever experienced, and I immediately met friends, targets, and enemies. There was a group of foreigners, probably Arabic of some sort, and they immediately started bullying me because of my less severe ADHD and autism. They found it funny that I got angry easily. I was a shy little bitch, so I didn't want to hurt anyone, but eventually they just bullied me to the point where I got pushed into being a mentally deranged psychopath willing to beat up anyone in my path. Usually, I'd take my anger out on a girl named Victoria. She was obviously a victim of some sort of intellectual-based diagnosis of more heavy harm than mine, and it was sort of just a perfect target. She couldn't have her own argument. She didn't even know which finger on her hand was the middle finger. Of course, I never actually hit her, since she moved from the school in 2nd grade, probably on behalf of her parents. I'm sort of happy that she did, because that was around when I started hitting anyone in my path. Before I started getting violent with others, I usually just pushed them down slides they were too scared of. Basically psychological warfare. The really bad thing about this is that I ran on pills, like Elvins, Ritalin, and others. This hit me hard as a kid. When I was 6, I lost so much weight that I weighed about 10 to 15 kilos. It hit me physically and mentally. I would either get angrier or calmer. If I got angrier, I ate more. If I got calmer, I ate nothing. We ended up ditching the pills when I turned 11. Since I grew up and could do things properly, I also didn't get diagnosed with autism until I was 9, so I was given completely incorrect treatments, hitting me even more. I of course took several of these things to principals and teachers, but as said, that school had really no precautions. Teachers had full right to just not give a fuck, which is exactly what they did 90% of the time. Ask me whatever, tell me whatever. I probably won't answer a lot since I'm not read much, but I just want to know if it's as bad as it really is. I didn't give him the job because his kid is a jerk. I work in system management at a pretty significant company. We recently started posting for some manager-level positions. My kids both play hockey, and over the winter, we played a lot of games before this one kid's rep team. That kid is a jerk. He plays his music loud in common areas. He shoots the ball around in the hallways away from the rink and has hit a few kids. He goes to stick and puck and steals the pucks from kids just learning how to play. Like I said, an overall jerk. Every time I see his dad just sitting around chatting with his friends, ignoring his kids' actions. So, imagine my surprise when I see the dad in front of me for an interview. I have never actually spoken to him or know his name. He obviously had no idea who I was. As the interview went on, all I could think about was how his kid must have learned that jerky behaviors from somewhere, and what can I expect from someone who lets his kid act this way. He interviewed very well. In fact, I thought he was the best, but decided to pass on him just because of his jerky kid. I'm sure he has no idea. I'm curious if he says hi to me at the rink.